I'm Rajeshri Venkatramanan, reading 120 words English Shorthand Dictation. Okay, if you like my dictation, please transcribe and like and share. Okay, we can start. It is a matter for gratification that your society has been able to obtain resources from the public in the shape of the money and for starting, and what is even more difficult, for continue in to run so many educational institutions, all of which I'm sure are contributing to the spread of education and culture among the people of Karnataka, that you have been able to supplement in such large measure the efforts of your government to spread education in this part of your province. Let me say a word with special reference to this institution which you have recently started for the benefit of primary school teachers. We all know how vital for the betterment of our people is the spread of primary education extensively as well as speedily. But all over India, efforts in these directions have been held up by two obstacles. The first is, of course, the perennial lack of finance, and I shall not say anything on subject as I know that any pleading on the part of an administrator of shortage of finance is sure to be received by the public at large with skepticism, occasionally good humored, but more frequently otherwise. It is more appropriate that I shall address myself to the other obstacle that in no small measure stands in the way of the extension of primary education and the reaping of a full return for such outlay as is now made for the purpose. I refer to the lack of qualified teachers. It is not enough to find a building, the equipment, and the easily available supply of children for a primary school. Everything hinges upon the personality, the enthusiasm, and the qualification of the teachers. This is especially so in a country like ours, where in our own stage great difficulty in getting trained teachers for our primary schools. This lack of qualified teachers is one of the chief causes that account for the great wastage during the 4 years which are necessary for ensuring literacy. Therefore, you have done well in starting this institution. I have no doubt its personnel, equipment, curriculum, and methods of study are all calculated to turn out thoroughly well qualified teachers for the primary schools. Some of the teachers that leave this institution will no doubt find their work in towns, but by for the larger number will undoubtedly have to work in village schools. I trust, therefore, that the authorities of this institution will make every effort to give the teachers what is usually called a rural bias. They have not morally to train children whose subsequent lives will mostly be spent in villages, but a primary school teacher will also have to act as the guide, philosopher, and friend of the villagers. In a number of villages, the primary school teacher will probably be one of the few, if not the only person with any claim to education. On him will devolve the responsibility of helping the village community understand and solve a number of its problems, social and economic. Lastly, I hope that everything will be done in this institution to impress upon its pupils their social responsibilities. We talk very lightly of Indian progress as the progress of peasants. Dear friends, I consider it an honor to be invited to speak to you on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of this great institution. I consider this occasion more important because it coincides with the Silver Jubilee celebrations of this institution. I was a witness to the starting of this institution, which has now grown so much that it would be difficult to recognize its beginning, and it will be agreed by all that the starting and strengthening of this institution have been mainly due to the untiring energy of my friend. Of course, I do not want to belittle the labor of those who assisted him this great task. I have no doubt in my mind that this institution would not have come into being had it not been for the great interest taken by the founder. I congratulate all the students who have been the recipients of diplomas and certificates. I hope that the learning they have acquired in this institution will be properly used. The advice given at the end of the giving of the diploma and certificates have been very appropriate. The recipients have undertaken to act up to that advice, and if this is carried out, nobody will have to give any further advice. I therefore suggest that these promises that I have been given by you will always be borne in mind. I am sure that efforts will be made by all. Information regarding food availability, new food sources, food processing is certainly quite welcome and is a must. But we must not forget the social consequences of consuming these new foods or producing new types of foods. It involves a change of habits, traditions, and perhaps the system of values which we have accepted from times immemorial.